Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking the source material you sent us, your articles, your notes, and really getting into something that sounds pure sci-fi.
It definitely has that feel.
Right. This idea that Bill Gates might be, secretly pulling strings to control the weather. It's a conspiracy theory that's, well, it's gained a lot of traction online.
It certainly has.
So our mission here is to take your sources, sift through them, and sort of separate the fact from, the fiction. We want to get you up to speed quickly on this really captivating topic.
And it's captivating because the whole idea of controlling weather, especially now, with climate change making things like droughts and hurricanes so much worse, it's both really tantalizing and, frankly, pretty terrifying.
It really is that
Yeah.
dual nature.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. Geoengineering, it sounds so futuristic. What exactly is geoengineering based on the sources?
Well, it's a real field of science. It tries to blend really cutting-edge research with some, frankly, quite thorny ethical questions. The basic idea is intentionally manipulating the Earth's climate systems,
To do what exactly?
primarily to try and counteract some of the effects of global warming. It's ambitious, definitely, but there are some concrete techniques being explored.
Okay, so it's not just one thing. What are the main methods the sources are talking about?
Right, not just one thing. They focus on two main ones. First, there's cloud seeding. This has actually been around for a while, since the 1940s.
Wow, that long.
Yeah. It basically involves using chemicals. Silver iodide is a common one, to encourage rain or snow to fall from existing clouds, sort of giving them a nudge.
Okay. And the second one?
The second one is much more ambitious, maybe more controversial. It's called stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI.
SAI. Okay.
And that involves injecting tiny reflective particles like calcium carbonate, maybe way up into the stratosphere. The goal is to reflect a small amount of sunlight back into space.
To cool the planet down.
Exactly. To create a cooling effect.
This is where it starts to sound really complex, though. I mean, promising science, maybe, but manipulating global systems.
Huh.
That seems inherently unpredictable, doesn't it? Is it really as simple as just, spraying some stuff up there?
Oh, absolutely not. Far from it.
Yeah.
The sources are clear that the science here is, well, it's far from settled. Take SAI. Okay, theoretically, it could cool the planet.
Right.
But studies, there was one in Nature Climate Change back in 2018, suggest it could have major side effects, like messing up rainfall patterns, which is huge, or maybe even damaging the ozone layer.
Okay, so potentially massive unintended consequences.
Exactly. The key takeaway is these tools are powerful, yes, but the risks are enormous and not fully understood. Extreme caution is needed.
What about cloud seeding, then? It's older tech. Is it safer, more reliable, or does it have its own set of problems?
It also has challenges. The results are pretty mixed, honestly. Your sources mention a 2019 experiment in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and it did seem to increase rainfall locally by about 10–15%, which sounds good for that specific area.
Okay.
But, and this is a big but scaling that kind of thing up globally, that could really destabilize larger weather systems. You might cause droughts in one place while trying to make it rain somewhere else.
So you risk creating floods elsewhere.
Precisely. The Earth's climate is this incredibly complex, balanced system. Everything's connected. Even small tweaks can have these cascading, unforeseen effects. Critics really worry about altering major systems like monsoons or just making extreme weather events worse.
It's a huge gamble. But then again, you hear proponents saying, look, climate change is accelerating. Maybe this is our only option, our last resort.
That's the dilemma, exactly. High stakes either way.
Which brings us squarely to Bill Gates. The sources talk about his involvement. Is he really, like the theories claim, pulling the strings? What's his actual role here?
Well, his role is documented, but it's not quite the secret mastermind picture. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has invested significant money, millions, into climate initiatives generally.
Oh.
And that does include funding for some geoengineering research.
Yeah.
Gates himself has publicly supported exploring these kinds of technologies as potential tools against global warming.
And are there specific projects mentioned?
Yes. One key example is the Solar Geoengineering Research Program at Harvard University. He's provided some funding for that.
And that's one looking at SAI.
Exactly. They're
Yeah.
focused on SAI, specifically researching the idea of using calcium carbonate particles in the stratosphere. It's very much research at this stage, looking at feasibility and risks.
Any other ventures?
The sources also mention his investment in a company called Intellectual Ventures.
Okay.
They apparently developed drones for cloud seeding. The idea being more precise delivery of seeding agents to help rainfall in drought areas.
Yeah.
So, if you connect the dots, these are projects framed publicly as ways to tackle climate change, not hidden.
Right. They're out in the open. But even so, these investments have clearly fueled a lot of suspicion. Why Gates? Why does he become this sort of lightning rod for conspiracy theories about weather control?
Yeah, it's a combination of things, I think.
Yeah.
First, just his sheer wealth and influence. People with that much power often attract scrutiny and suspicion, right?
Sure, that makes sense.
Then there's the history. His foundation has been heavily involved in global health, especially vaccines, and that work already generated a lot of conspiracy theories about control and hidden agendas among certain groups.
Ah, okay. So there's pre-existing mistrust.
Exactly. So when you bring in something like geoengineering, which already sounds kind of sci-fi and has these potentially global consequences, it just taps into and amplifies those existing fears.
And the nature of the funding itself.
That too. There are legitimate criticisms raised in the sources about the transparency, or lack thereof, when private money, especially from billionaires, funds research with such massive implications. The argument goes that individuals like Gates could end up having way too much influence over global climate decisions, even if they mean well.
So beyond the science, this really opens up a can of worms, politically and ethically. What are the big questions there?
Oh, absolutely. It's an ethical minefield. I mean, just think, who gets to decide?
Yeah.
Who decides when and where to use these technologies?
Right.
If, say, one country or even a private foundation starts trying to cool the planet, what happens if it messes up farming or water supplies in another country? Who's accountable?
And developing nations often get hit hardest by climate change.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But they might have the least say in these potentially world-altering decisions being funded or made by wealthy countries or philanthropists far away. It raises serious equity concerns.
And that connects back to the power grab argument against Gates, doesn't it? Even if it's framed as altruism.
It does. The argument isn't necessarily that he has malicious intent, but that controlling something as fundamental as the weather could grant unprecedented power. Power over food, water, economic stability. It's immense.
Is there research backing that concern?
Well, the sources mentioned a 2020 report from the World Economic Forum. It highlighted that geoengineering, if it's not governed really transparently and internationally, could actually make global inequalities worse. So it's less about motives and more about the practical reality of concentrating that much potential influence.
And adding to all that uncertainty is the fact that the science is still experimental.
Precisely. There was that cloud seeding test in Wyoming in 2019. It showed maybe a 5–10% increase in snowfall. Modest.
Sure.
But the long-term effects, still unclear.
Fear.
Big potential for tension. China, for example, has a massive cloud seeding program. And some neighboring countries have blamed it for changing their rainfall patterns. Whether that's true or not, it shows the potential for geopolitical friction.
So it really underlines the need for some kind of global agreement or governance?
Desperately. Before these technologies potentially get deployed more widely by individual nations or private groups.
Okay, let's cut to the chase then. The conspiracy theories themselves. What are people actually claiming online, say, on platforms like X? What's the core allegation about Gates?
The claims get pretty wild. Things like Gates is using geoengineering not just to fight climate change, but to deliberately manipulate financial markets or control populations, maybe even depopulate the planet.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. These narratives often weave his climate investments into a much bigger, more sinister alleged plot for global control.
And what did the sources say about the evidence for those specific claims?
They're very direct. There's just no credible evidence to support those kinds of allegations. But they spread easily. Why? Because there is this underlying distrust of powerful institutions and figures like Gates. His high profile makes him an easy focal point for those anxieties.
So let's try to bring it back to the reality presented in the sources. What's a balanced perspective here, weighing the evidence?
Okay, so weighing it up. The sources are clear. There's no concrete proof. Gates is controlling the weather in some manipulative way. His investments line up with his stated goals tackling climate change.
And the projects themselves?
The big ones, like the Harvard SAI research, are still very early stage. They're small-scale experiments, really, and they face a lot of scrutiny from other scientists. Cloud seeding is more established, yes, but it's localized. It can't control global weather systems.
But, and this seems important, the concerns aren't totally unfounded, even if the conspiracy part is baseless.
That's a crucial distinction the sources make, yes. The conspiracy theories are overblown, but the underlying concerns about geoengineering are real. There are genuine risks, ozone damage, messing with rainfall, geopolitical conflict. These are serious potential downsides, regardless of who's funding the research.
So Gates's involvement highlights a bigger issue.
Exactly. Even if his intentions are purely benevolent, his level of influence does underscore this fundamental problem. Do we want the future of the planet's climate potentially shaped by a handful of billionaires or powerful nations? It raises uncomfortable questions about power and oversight. The idea itself is unsettling.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive shows geoengineering is this double-edged sword, immense hope, maybe, but also significant peril. And Bill Gates's role really throws both sides into sharp relief.
That sums it up well. The wild conspiracy theory about him secretly controlling weather. Overblown, according to the evidence. But it definitely taps into a genuine, understandable unease about who's actually in charge, who gets to make these planet-altering decisions in our warming world.
Which leaves us and you with a pretty critical thought to ponder. The future of Earth's climate probably shouldn't be in the hands of just a few individuals or entities. The real challenge here is making sure that if geoengineering is pursued, it benefits everyone globally and isn't driven by private interests or leads to unintended harm.
That's the core ethical challenge, really.
We covered a lot today, didn't we? And listen, this kind of in-depth look at complex topics is exactly what you'll find over at Mind Expansion Daily. So if you found this useful, if you enjoyed this deep dive, please do take a second to like this and subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily. You'll get more insights just like this one.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
And, our sources specifically wanted feedback on this. So what do you think after hearing all this? Is Bill Gates primarily a climate innovator trying to find solutions? Or is he a figure whose influence we should be wary of in this domain? Let us know in the comments below. We'd genuinely love to hear if you agree or disagree with how we've summarized this incredibly complex issue based on the sources you provided.